Today's lesson is Chapter 2, Lesson 2 on simplest form. In case you don't remember from last year, simplest form is when the numerator and denominator of a fraction have no factors in common greater than 1. Using the terminology we learned in the last class, we would say that the GCF, or greatest common factor, of the numerator and denominator is 1. In case you've forgotten, the numerator is the number on the top in the fraction, and the denominator is the number on the bottom. There are two basic strategies I'm going to show you for how to put a fraction into simplest form. The first one is to find the greatest common factor of the numerator and denominator. Let's find the greatest common factor of 6 and 10. As you can see, the greatest common factor of 6 and 10 is 2. So what we're going to do is we're now going to divide the numerator and denominator of this fraction, both by 2. It's important to remember that whatever you're going to do to the numerator of a fraction, you have to also do to the denominator of that fraction. Otherwise, the fraction will become imbalanced. You see here that we're dividing both the numerator by 2 and the denominator by 2. This will give us an answer of 6 divided by 2 equals 3, and 10 divided by 2 equals 5. If you think about it, what we're really doing here is dividing by 1. 2 over 2, a numerator of 2, a denominator of 2, 2 out of 2 parts would equal 1 whole. And as you know, dividing by 1 does not change the value of the fraction. It does not change the value of any number you divide by 1. So by dividing by 2 over 2, we're not changing the value of 6/10. We're merely writing it in a form that will be easier to use for the work we want to do later on. So we now have 6/10 in simplest form is 3/5. Here's another way that you can put a number into simplest form. This way is a little more sloppy, but I found that it's very popular with students, so I'm going to show it to you. I'm still going to recommend you do it the first way and find the greatest common factor and divide. But if you are going to do it this way, let's at least make sure that you get the right answer. With this method, what we're going to do is just find any number that we know 32 and 40 can both be divided by. This is where that divisibility chart is going to really come in handy. I know that both 32 and 40 can be divided by 2, because they both end with an even number. Now, even though I found a number that's closer to simplest form, 16/20 still is not in simplest form. I can still see at least one number that I can divide both 16 and 20 by. I know that both of those numbers have 4 as a factor. This gives me 4/5. Looking at 4/5, I can see that their greatest common factor is 1. There's no other number besides 1 that we can divide 4 and 5 by. So 4/5 would be the answer to this problem. It's 32/40 in simplest form. As I said, this method is a little more sloppy, and you're a little bit more likely to make mistakes. But students seem to love it, so I want to make sure that if you are going to use it, you're doing it correctly. Now I'd like you to try and solve this problem on your own. Put 10/15 into simplest form. Hit pause now and solve this problem, and when you hit play, I will give you the answer. 10/15 in simplest form would give you 2/3. The greatest common factor was 5, We divided both the numerator and the denominator by 5 and got an answer of 2/3. Now let's try one more. 10/15 in simplest form would give you 2/3. The greatest common factor was 5. We divided both the numerator and the denominator by 5 and got an answer of 2/3. Now let's try one more. The answer to this problem was 1/3. Sometimes problems like this confuse students because the factor being divided by is one of the numbers, and they think that they must be wrong and choose something smaller. It's okay to choose that number. 4 is still a factor of 4. Every number is a factor of itself.